Hey friends out there in YouTube land, Robert Ham here. Today I want to share with you how to get rid of overcast or ugly skies in your portrait photography. This is just one way to do it. This is how I do it. There are many different ways, and I'm going to share with you a quick way to do it. If you've got some great pro tips down there on how you do it, please leave them down in the comments below. But basically, I want to share with you, when you take photos on an overcast day, in this particular wedding we had a squall come through. It was very hot and muggy outside. It had been raining just a few minutes before, and there was a haze left throughout the entire beach. And no matter which way you went or looked, all you saw was this haze. It was around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which meant that the sun was setting on the east coast. That means that if you're facing east, the sun is behind you. This wedding took place facing east. In this particular picture, I'm facing south, right? So from this photo's perspective, from my perspective, the sun would be coming from the right, and it would be a very bright sun. Yet there's so much clouds, it's completely overcast. Generally speaking, when you are looking at a 90-degree angle or a 100-degree angle away from the sun, like with the sun behind you or to the left or the right of you, you're going to have a pretty nicely saturated sky. When you start looking into the sun, you can kind of lose some of that saturation. So here, I chose some clouds to make it look nice. And as you can see, we've got some clouds that match the sky, and we'll continue the work in Lightroom. Whenever I use a reconstructive method to put something into my photo, it's never done at this part. It's really 3 parts. So briefly, that's important to Lightroom to sort and make some initial corrections. Choose the photos I wish to edit and the ones that need to be corrected, and then I move those, I edit from Lightroom into Photoshop. In Photoshop, I correct whatever needs to be reconstructed, whether it's sweat or whether it's the sky in this case. From there, I move back to Lightroom for my final edits. So this particular image is not one that has had the final edits put on. But let's talk about some of the pitfalls of an image like this. First of all, we've got a white background, an overcast sky, and in this case, unfortunately, we've got this white scrim as well, and we've got to worry about that. So in this particular image, I was worried about adding in the sky in a way that gave the translucency to the scrim, and we were able to do that. In this case, you don't get to see any of the layers because I edited this before I thought about making the video, and then I thought, let me share with you. So without further ado, let's jump into that. And what do we need? We're going to edit this image together. Like I said, I brought it into Lightroom in order to get some base adjustments, move it over to Photoshop to where I can add my reconstruction, then I'll finalize the colors and everything in Lightroom. Okay, so we're going to add a sky. In this case, I'm facing east. The sun is 180 degrees behind me at this time, so I need a sky that actually has the sun at my back. And I also need one that's going to have just the right amount of bokeh so that as we look around and we can see, we've got a little bit of blur between our subject and our arbor. Our subject is fine, but in the background back here, you can definitely see there's a lot of background blur. So we need to have an image of some sky that has that. And I've got 2 different sky images. The best way to get an image of the sky is to actually go out and photograph the sky. And so this is what we've done. We've got an image of the sky. I'm going to select the sky. And if you didn't know, you can select your move tool. You can left click, hold the left button, move your cursor over the image you want that picture to go to, and then drag it onto your image and let your left click button go. And at this point in time, we've got the sky over here. Now it's very opaque. We can't see anything behind it. That's fine. I'm going to enlarge the image right off the bat, and I'm also going to choose where I want the image to go. I'm going to do that by changing my layer opacity. For this layer, I'm going to bring it down just enough so I can see what's behind it. Remember, the sky is going to go over top. Okay. Now, I'm looking at this, and because of all that white, we need something that's going to help us here. There are several different modes that you can use. Let's bring the opacity back up and let's just talk about opacity for a second. Recognizing that we can put this image over top of another image, we can also change how it affects the image below. So we can dissolve, we can darken. Darken is going to take the dark spots and allow them to bleed through at 100%, and it's going to take the intermediate spots. It's going to be like almost adding a transparency with a mask, but that doesn't help. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to let you know that you can choose several different ones, and it will do different things. The ones that I usually use are screen, which doesn't work here because that puts dark spots on top of light colors, and as you can see, that doesn't help. And I'll also use color dodge, overlay, and sometimes vivid or hard light. In this instance, none of those are going to work, so I'm going to need to use my normal mode. Bringing the opacity back down. Doing so means I'm going to want to try to align some colors to make my job a little bit easier. I want to align as much of the cloud on top of the scrim as I possibly can. That's going to help me quite a bit, and I'll show you why in a minute. And by looking at this, I think right here is going to be great. Yeah, I feel like right here is going to be nice. So we do that. I'm going to go ahead and push G. I need my gradient tool. If you don't push G, you can come over here and click this little box. Make sure that I've got black selected, and I'm going to come back to my image and select it. At this point in time, I'm going to hit my layer mask. It's going to add a layer mask. Now, if you'll notice, there's a little frame around the mask that changes when I click between my image or my layer mask. In this instance, I want to be painting on the layer mask. And I want to paint in black because anything I paint black on the layer mask will become invisible. Only what's white will stay. So from here, I'm going to draw up. I've left-clicked at the bottom of my image while clicked on the layer mask. Drawn up, pretty much straight. You can hold shift and that'll make it a straight line, and then let go. Notice how quite a bit of the clouds disappeared right away. Okay? That's because it created that black gradient, and you can see that represented there on the layer mask. Now I'm going to click my move tool. I'm going to select my my actual image, and I'm going to move this around some. If I wanted to make it larger, I could still transform right here. And I see that I really do like this just fine. So I'm going to click back on my layer mask. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab my brush. You can do that by clicking B as well. I need to make my brush just a little bit larger. I'm going to go to about 35% opacity, and I'm going to select my size for my brush. I need a big brush, and down here I'm just going to feather the edges out because we don't need them up to the horizon. And I'm painting black, and that's going to erase some of the top image. It's going to add a mask. And in this case, because I'm working with the white in the background and my models are on the white, I'm able to mask this part out and show just a little bit of transparency in a way that looks really nice. It's a little more easy to see over here because our pastor is standing in front of the scrim and there's so much that you can see through behind it. But as I paint, you can notice that it's becoming more and more visible and less of the background is on top. And it is also at the same time adding the effect of giving me a transparent background. Okay, or transparency in the scrim. Okay. Okay, right there as well. So that looks nice. Now, while we're here, there's one other thing that we can do is on this, we can also come up here and grab our filter, go to our blur gallery, and we're going to go to Gaussian blur. Now, this is important. I want you to look back here. Remember, the clouds are kind of in focus, but the horizon isn't. So I'm going to come down here, and I actually want to really blur out the clouds. If you blur them too much, they'll become totally unreadable. We don't want to do that. We want to come down here and be about 5 or 6 pixels or so blurred. Maybe just a little bit more. As you can see, they're kind of blurring just a little bit. Okay. Great. So now that we've got that Gaussian blur, notice we also have a pretty nice match for the overcast sky and the color blue in the image. However, this would be a great time to grab our filter, our image, go to Adjustments. We want to go to Hue Saturation. We need to be clicked on the correct palette, and that will be the overlay. Okay, Adjustments, Hue Saturation. And from here, I'm just going to give it a little more kick. I'm going to go with my blues. Okay. There we go. What I want to do is saturate them some, but I also want to kind of match kind of the color in the ocean, which in this case means pulling back a little bit, getting a little bit of green to go in there. Oh yeah, that's great. Now if you do something crazy, it'll be easily noticeable. Okay, but we bring that green in, and we take our greens and we push them a little blue, right? And so that now brings in some of that pretty color. And because we extended the mask a little bit below the horizon line, and we feathered the horizon line, it allows for our image, our clouds, to merge into the background real nicely. And that's that. Okay, so in just 11 minutes, we've gone through it. I hope that you find this helpful. Of course, the more time you spend on your photos, the better the look. For me, this image is great and ready to go back into Lightroom for the final edits. Thanks a lot. Catch you guys on the flip side.